Tonight on Reporting Scotland, the gangster dubbed Scotland's Tony Soprano is jailed for 20 years. Jamie the Iceman Stevenson masterminded a plot to smuggle £100 million of cocaine from South America to Scotland. The authorities here say bringing down his operation will have saved lives.
Importation, a ton of cocaine, millions of tablets of Atizolam being brought into Scotland, and we have significant drugs death in Scotland. I think you can draw that link, absolutely. Has this operation saved lives in Scotland? I think you can definitely say that, yeah.
Also on tonight's programme, we hear from some of the Scots affected by the fighting in the Middle East. We also have the latest fallout from the efforts to tackle overcrowding in Scotland's jails. As it emerges, 1 in 10 prisoners freed early were back inside before their original release date. The owners of Inverness Caledonian Thistle warn the club has a fortnight to raise the cash to avoid going bust.
Coming up in the sport, Celtic captain Callum McGregor says his team must learn lessons to avoid more humiliating Champions League defeats.
And how a couple were reunited with their long-lost wedding video, nearly 60 years on and thousands of miles away. Hello, I'm Laura Miller. Welcome to Wednesday's programme. He's known as the Iceman and was once described as Scotland's Tony Soprano. And tonight, he's behind bars. Jamie Stevenson was sentenced to 20 years today after admitting orchestrating a plot to smuggle cocaine worth £100 million from South America to Glasgow in boxes of bananas. Here's our Home Affairs correspondent David Cowan with the background to the case and today's sentencing.
In February 2020, Spain's Costa Blanca became the focus of an investigation called Operation Pepperoni. A Glasgow fruit merchant with links to organised crime was making a brief visit on Valentine's Day to Alicante. Investigators felt David Bilsland was unlikely to have romance in his mind and asked the Spanish police to photograph who he was meeting. They sent back this, and the downfall of notorious gangster Jamie Stevenson began.
That changed the stakes a little bit. We realised then that this was at a significant level because James Stevenson is at the top end of serious organised crime gangs in Scotland.
Around this time, French law enforcement infiltrated EncroChat, an encrypted messaging service used by criminals, including Stevenson and his gang. Police Scotland and the National Crime Agency discovered Stevenson had set up a pill factory in Kent. Inside, they found 28 million tablets of Atizolam, better known as street Valium. The factory could churn out 250,000 an hour. On the day of the raid, police officers arrested Stevenson outside this plush Glasgow hotel. The crime boss, reputed to have been the target of gangland hits, made an unsuccessful attempt to escape.
In the circles that Jamie Stevenson operates in, maybe was relieved that it was the police rather than anybody else.
The Kent pill factory was an English case. Stevenson was taken to Carlisle, released on bail and fled abroad. 3 months later, acting on intelligence from Operation Pepperoni, Border Force officials at Dover uncovered nearly a ton of cocaine hidden with bananas from Ecuador addressed to David Bilsland's fruit business in Glasgow. Stevenson had been central to it all.
He would not have been able to bring them in those amounts if he didn't have that network of contacts right around the world. So he very much sits at the top table, both from a Scottish perspective, but more particularly his credibility around the world to be able to undertake such a venture.
In February 2022, the NCA published this. Within months, Stevenson had been captured in the Netherlands while out jogging with another Scottish fugitive, Dean Ferguson, who was convicted of culpable homicide on his return. Faced with overwhelming evidence, Stevenson admitted masterminding the cocaine plot and producing and supplying Atizolam. Lloyd Cross and David Bilsland were involved with the cocaine. Stevenson's stepson, Jerry Carbon, Paul Bowes and Ryan McPhee, the Atizolam.
These convictions are monumental. Obviously, as Jamie Stevenson and his criminal network were involved in major drug dealing on an industrial scale, but also as a marker from law enforcement, the criminal justice system in Scotland.
2020 was the year Scotland suffered its highest ever death toll from drugs. Atizolam was implicated in 800, cocaine in 459.
Significant importation, a ton of cocaine, millions of tablets of Atizolam being brought into Scotland or were trying to be brought into Scotland, and we have significant drugs death in Scotland. I think you can draw that link, absolutely. Has this operation saved lives in Scotland? I think you can definitely say that, yeah.
Today, Stevenson learned his fate.
And I am satisfied that the total period of 20 years imprisonment is fair and proportionate.
Court.
Stevenson will appeal against that sentence. The other men were jailed for a total of 29 years. Jamie Stevenson is 59 years old. This sentence means he's likely to be in his 70s before he leaves prison. And in the meantime, the Crown Office will be chasing his money. Police believe Stevenson has made tens of millions of pounds during his career. What happens next will depend on what can be found and what can be proved in court. David Cowan reporting Scotland, Glasgow.
With tensions running high in the Middle East, Scots caught up in the conflict or with families in the region are bracing themselves for what comes next. Fighting continues in southern Lebanon today between Israeli forces and Hezbollah militants. And last night, Iran launched a massive missile attack on Israel. As the world watches on, Scots there fear for their safety, as do loved ones here, thousands of miles away. Katie Hunter reports.
The warnings came, and so did the missiles. This time from Iran. People across Israel were told to take shelter last night.
In the past year, last night was probably one of the most terrifying.
Scottish-Israeli Danielle Betts spent the evening in a bomb shelter.
It's pretty terrifying just to hear that, like, unthinkable sounds of explosions that you don't know what buildings they're hitting. If you don't know if your loved ones are okay, you don't know what you're kind of going to walk out to when you open the door of the bomb shelter.
And you have to leave everything, stop everything and just go.
Sammy Steen was born in Israel and lives in Glasgow. His thoughts were with family and friends across Israel last night.
Just imagine having to live with that here in Scotland, thinking that you could be doing a normal thing and suddenly you have to leave everything behind and run into a shelter. You don't know where your kids are. You don't know where your partner is. You don't know anything. You just need to get away from where you are. And that is very, very, very difficult to live with on a regular basis.
Over the border in Lebanon, there's death and destruction. Israel has stepped up its aerial assault of Beirut in the past week.
Thank you very much. All right.
This Scottish-Lebanese family in Edinburgh live in fear for their loved ones.
I have another auntie, a direct auntie, my dad's sister, and cousins living on the outskirts of Beirut. They hear jets and explosions every day. We're at a point where the Lebanese are saying, I am a 5-minute drive away from something blowing up. I think right now I'm safe. These are the levels we're talking about.
They feel helpless and hopeless.
Heartbreak, complete heartbreak. Oh dear. Even just speaking to friends there who are just basically hiding, wondering, you know, if they're going to be alive tomorrow, alive that night.
And no one knows what's coming next, or when this current conflict might end. Katie Hunter reporting Scotland.
More than 1 in 10 of the prisoners let out of Scotland's jails early were back in prison before their original release date. In the summer, almost 500 prisoners were released early in a bid to ease overcrowding. Of those, 57 were back behind bars within weeks, including 12 who were out for 10 days or less. Our political correspondent Phil Sim has been looking at the data. Phil, what more do we know then?
Well, this was all an effort to ease overcrowding in the prison system, which was running above its capacity levels. And as you saw there were people coming back into the system literally within days of having been released early. The most common reasons for people returning to custody were crimes of violence and crimes of dishonesty, and victims groups are saying that those are crimes which would not have taken place if it wasn't for those early releases. The government says that any reoffending is obviously a bad thing, but that actually the reconviction rate we're seeing here is actually way below the normal average. But it all speaks to a bigger issue. There are still more people coming into our prisons than there are going out. The population is higher now than it was before we started the early release system. In fact, it's very close to a record level.
Yeah, so this data was a snapshot, but what is that bigger picture you're talking about?
Well, the government actually had modelling out today which showed that the prison population could hit 9,000 by the end of the year, and that is way above the target capacity of 8,000. So there's an immediate question for the government about what they do now. They've consulted on measures around longer term prisoners, about having them serve more of their sentences on licence. They're looking at broader reforms to the justice system around community justice and home detention. But there are also questions about what they can do to take the pressure off the system now, because if they do get up to 9,000, that kind of number is really not safe or sustainable. So I think we'll be hearing more from the Justice Secretary Angela Constance very soon on this. As she said to me today, doing nothing is not an option.
OK, Phil Sim, thank you. Inverness Caledonian Thistle are warning the club has 2 weeks to raise enough money to avoid going bust. The board has launched a crowdfunding campaign in an effort to raise £200,000 before Wednesday the 16th of October. They say if they don't make that target, the football club will be put into administration, as Karen Elder reports.
There has been mutterings here about administration over the last few months, ever since the club's financial troubles were exposed at the end of last season, having been relegated from the Scottish Championship. So far, though, it hasn't come to fruition. Now, local businessman Alan Savage, who is currently acting as business consultant to the club, has carried out a forensic review of its financial position, and his report makes for very grim reading. In a letter to shareholders, the current interim chair has outlined the conclusions of that review. They say £200,000 is needed in the next fortnight before the 16th of October. Otherwise, the club would be insolvent. That's according to the current cash flow projections. Now, in order to raise that sum, they're proposing a crowdfunding page. However, the clock is ticking. And as a result, the board have informed the SPFL of their current situation, and they are in discussions with who they say is Scotland's leading football administrators, should they fail to reach this target. They're also proposing an open meeting with stakeholders, shareholders and fans at the beginning of next week as part of their efforts to stave off this looming threat of administration.
Karen Elder reporting. Now, the 4 candidates hoping to become the next Conservative leader have made their pitches to the party conference in Birmingham. Our Westminster correspondent David Porter was there.
A Tory conference like no other. The final day, but no traditional leader's speech. Instead, 4 of them, one from each of those hoping to be the new boss.
Good morning, conference.
First up, Tom Tugendhat.
The only way to build trust back is to show real change. And that's the new Conservative revolution that I promise.
Then the former Foreign Secretary, James Cleverly.
Sorry on behalf of the Conservative Parliamentary Party who let you down.
An apology to activists, but also this call.
To look to the future with one voice and say that it is morning once again in this great country of ours.
It's great to be home. I'm a Midlands man.
Robert Jenrick playing to his Midlands roots and the need for change.
If we are going to change this party, to restore the trust and the confidence of the people, if we're going to tackle together the immense challenges our country faces, we are going to have to build something new.
It is time to tell the truth.
Kemi Badenoch, the final one to make her pitch.
A Britain that believes in itself. And that sort of Britain can only come about because of renewed Conservative principles.
At the end, the obligatory group photo. Next week, Tory MPs will whittle the 4 candidates down to the final 2. Then the decision will be put to party members. David Porter reporting Scotland at the Conservative Party conference in Birmingham.
Now, just before we go to the sport, Rangers and Scotland legend Ali McCoist has been receiving his OBE today. The 62-year-old received the honour for services to football and broadcasting from the Prince of Wales at Windsor Castle. He says it is the highlight of his career, which comes 30 years after he picked up an MBE. I wonder what he and the Prince were talking about.
I wonder. That'll have been funny, I imagine, on Alan McCoy. So entertaining.
So. He's got the patter, hasn't he?
He does.
Anyway, we are looking back at last night.
Yeah, not a laughing matter.
No,
that one
not
for
at
sure,
all.
Laura. Thanks very much. Yes, hello there. Well, a sobering and humbling night. Those were the words of Celtic captain Callum McGregor after watching his side capitulate to a 7-1 hammering to Borussia Dortmund in the Champions League.
It was going to be a big challenge. Obviously our form coming into it was absolutely fantastic, and we would have wanted to be in much better this evening, but you can really get punished at this level.
Well, the scale of this defeat is not a one-off in the Champions League under Rodgers. These results are over his 2 spells in charge. Celtic shipped 7 in Barcelona back in 2016, and a year later it was the same again in Paris, a 7-1 defeat to PSG. Rodgers then left the club, but since he's been back, 2 more hammerings, 6-0 in Madrid and last night's humiliation. Captain Callum McGregor hinted after the match that it could be time for a rethink.
We've been humbled a little bit, and sometimes you have to take your medicine, so to have that learning curve of maybe the next games that are coming up and the level, then yeah, maybe we have to just, for one, bring a better level of game. But we are where we are, and we are probably where we expected to be after 2 games, so you know, we don't have to go nuclear on it. It's a bad result, but we started the season really well, and we just need to stay together.
Rangers manager Philippe Clement says it would be a very good result if his side draw with French side Lyon in the Europa League tomorrow night. Clement has been boosted by the return of Yanis Hadji to the first team fold after the Romanian attacker's contract situation was resolved. And while the Rangers boss said his side will be aiming for all 3 points, he didn't shy away from the size of the task at hand.
Winning against Lyon would be a huge thing. Even a draw would be a very good result if you see the difference in budget that they can spend on transfers. So we go full for that, and we go for the 3 points, not to play only to get 1 point. But then we need everybody on his top. We need a few players who go above their level, and have an amazing evening with the fans being like a 12th player outside the pitch, but that you feel the energy on the pitch.
New St Johnstone boss Simo Valakari says he's dreamed of returning to Scotland since his days playing for Motherwell, and has targeted taking the Perth side back into Europe. The 51-year-old has had successful spells managing in Latvia and Finland, but believes Scottish football is a perfect fit for him, and he can't wait to get started.
I've been dreaming of it, but at the same time I've been realistic how difficult it is from Finnish manager to come and to coach here. But I've been successful enough. I've been in different environments where I have been able to make myself as a stronger coach, more experienced coach, and now I know that I can use those past experience here and help this club to be better.
Now, it's probably the only time you'll find A-list actors competing alongside golfing greats. It's the 23rd year of the Alfred Dunhill Links Championship, a unique pro-am event staged across some of Scotland's best courses. We sent our reporter Louise Cowie to catch up with those getting some practice in at a wild and windy old course.
It's golf, with a slice of glitz and glamour. The Alfred Dunhill Links Championship pairs professionals with celebrities, and they don't get much bigger than Hollywood legend Bill Murray.
I enjoy it. The fact that I come across the ocean to play here under these weather conditions, I guess enjoyment is the word. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's golf, and I grew up as a caddy, and now I have a caddy. So it's a circle of life. I'm very excited, Louise. Very excited. Are you a gambling woman?
Could be.
Let's get some money down on my team.
Rock royalty are also taking to the tees, but it's not necessarily a bed of roses for Bon Jovi drummer Tico Torres, whose nickname is the Hitman.
Does that translate to the golf course as well?
No, it does not. Sideways is a better nickname.
How do you fancy your chances this year?
I don't fancy them at all. I'm just here to have fun.
The Pro-Am event takes place over St Andrews, Carnoustie and Kingsbarns over the next 4 days, and is a popular fixture for stars of other sports.
just trying to master a game that's almost impossible. I was just chatting to Rory McIlroy there, and Rory's probably the most talented golfer we've seen in many, many years, and you know, he sometimes says, God, this game's so tough.
Are you as good at golf as you were on a horse?
Sadly not, because I have often thought the good thing about riding a horse is you can actually blame the horse. Whereas if you're using Callaway golf clubs and you're looking at John Ram hitting them, you're thinking, why do mine not go like his?
The championship is being played to the backdrop of an ongoing split in the men's game between the PGA and Live League, something Dunhill defending champion Matt Fitzpatrick addressed.
My idea would be Premier League, a Championship, a League One, a League Two of golf, and then there's more of a relegation, promotion. If everyone was together, I feel like that would be more beneficial anyway.
That's perhaps something Tom Morris, the grand old man of golf, would approve of. A statue of him was unveiled opposite the R&A earlier, a bridge between golf's past and present in the home of the sport during one of its most prestigious championships. Louise Cowie, reporting Scotland St Andrews.
Always a great event.
Yeah,
Laura.
it shows off the old course, doesn't it?
It does. And just before I go, some bad news for Aberdeen. Their striker, Papi Habib Gay, won't play again this year with an injury, so a big blow for Aberdeen.
Oh dear, thank you, Lewis. Now we're going to segue here into a bit of a
Oh, yeah?
romance, so stand by. Yeah, now a couple from Aberdeen who married almost 6 decades ago before moving to Australia have been reunited with their wedding video thanks to a chance find and the power of social media. Aileen and Bill Turnbull wed in 1967, all captured on cinefilm, but the couple only saw it once before it was lost for decades. Our correspondent Katrina Renton takes up the story.
The 5th of August 1967, 20-year-olds Aileen and Bill's wedding day. One of the guests captured it on film.
After the wedding, like when we'd been away for honeymoon and came back, and we wanted to see it, Bill borrowed a camera and projector from a guy at his work. So we were able to see it just that one time. And then after that, it disappeared.
After their wedding here, the couple went on to have 3 children and they moved to Australia, never having found the film and never giving it much more thought.
Until 57 years later, when Aileen saw her picture online.
You know, I saw this photograph and Bill was sitting with me at the time when it came up, and I thought, oh my goodness, here's our wedding photograph. And then when I read it, and it said, does anyone know this couple? And I knew right away, I thought, this is from our wedding video.
They're so young though, aren't they?
Oh yeah, they are. And they're still together after all these years.
Back in Aberdeen, Terry Cheen came across the film after he had his own reels transferred onto DVD. He didn't recognise the people in the wedding video and wanted to track them down.
Isn't she beautiful?
She looks stunning, yeah. And look at her proud dad. I'm so delighted for Aileen. I really am. I'm just delighted that after 57 years, she's only ever seen it once. And now she can watch it again and again and again with her children and her grandchildren. And we're so delighted for her.
Terry is keeping the precious tapes safe for Aileen and Bill. They hope to meet in Aberdeen one day.
What struck me was the fact that it wasn't just like a photograph, looking at a photograph. I could see my parents, Bill's grandmother and grandfather. So but to keep pausing it to look at people, so.
It's quite amazing to think that the Page boy, he's 60.
He's 61.
61, and the Page girl's 60.
But actually seeing them there and seeing them moving around was just unbelievable. I'm going to get emotional now, I'm going to cry.
I think I might cry too. Katrina Renton with that story, which is quite lovely. Christopher.
What a lovely story.
It really was, wasn't it? How's the weather looking?
It's been a lovely start to October. Quiet, dry, some sunshine. It's not going to last.
Going to change.
It's all going to change, I'm afraid. Thank you very much, Laura. Very good evening to you. Yeah, we had some lovely sunshine across many parts of the country today. The cloud was bubbling up at times through this evening, melting away to leave us with dry and clear conditions overnight tonight. And it will be rather chilly as well. Temperatures in towns and cities around 0 to 4 Celsius, but some rural parts down to -2. There'll be some mist and fog forming. That could be stubborn to clear tomorrow. As for the forecast tomorrow, we still have high pressure situated overhead, keeping low pressure weather fronts and rain at bay, at least for one more day. So initially it's dry but chilly. There'll be some stubborn areas of mist and fog. That will slowly lift through the morning and then dissipate as we head through towards lunchtime in the afternoon to leave us with a dry and fine picture. Generally light winds, a bit of high level cloud, meaning the sunshine could be hazy at times, and temperatures similar to today, 13 to 15 Celsius. On the west coast and through the Hebrides, the winds here from the south-southeast a little stronger than elsewhere, a little more cloud, the chance of an isolated shower, but for most it's dry. Into tomorrow evening, some evening sunshine and then the change. You can see behind me, clouds thickening, outbreaks of rain. This is tomorrow night. That cloud spreads its way inland. So for Friday, it's a cloudier picture for central and western parts and patchy rain. Still some brightness towards the east and southeast. Temperatures again, 13 to 15 Celsius, turning windy now on the west coast. Through the weekend, and that high pressure continues to get shunted away. Low pressure takes over, bringing weather fronts and rain, turning breezy at times too. But it's a slow process. So on Saturday, we've still got a bit of sunshine for the likes of Aberdeen and Edinburgh in the east. By Sunday, more likely to be cloudy and wet almost anywhere, really. And next week, it remains unsettled. Low pressure nearby, but take a look behind me. This little feature here, that's Hurricane Kirk. By the time it reaches our shores, ex-hurricane, but it could well bring a spell of disruptive weather at the end of next week, so a week away. That's the forecast for now.
OK, thank you, Christopher. And a reminder of tonight's top story. The gangster dubbed Scotland's Tony Soprano has been jailed for 20 years. And that is Reporting Scotland. Anne McAlpine will have your late news at 10:30. Until then, from everyone here, enjoy your evening. Good night.